Howdy campers, Rena here to talk to you about trash. Exciting? So we're going to be talking about trash today, but more importantly, we're going to be talking about recycling, ways to reduce the amount of trash that we produce, and the effects that trash has on the ocean. So let's talk first about trash. So we make a lot of trash. As humans, one individual person can make 5 pounds of trash per day, which equals to about 18 pounds per average American family, which equals 1,642 pounds of trash per year, per family. That's a lot of trash. That's a lot of things that we are producing that are going directly into waste. And some of these trash products, these things that we are using, can take a really long time to what we call biodegrade, which means the natural process of degrading an item. So this could be anything from a banana peel all the way up to fishing line. So I have a couple of different materials here, and I have a couple of different materials to kind of talk through about how long it takes for them to biodegrade. Now, a lot of these items can go into landfills if they're not recycled. And so we're going to talk about the process of when they're biodegrading in landfills. We'll talk a little bit about how they're biodegrading in oceans in just a moment. So our first item or material is monofilament line. So this is your typical fishing line. That can take 600 years to biodegrade. So if we're using fishing line, the fishing line can take 600 years to biodegrade. With our regular ropes that have the just kind of like your tug of war ropes like we use in camp, that can take 3 to 14 months. So you can see the monofilament line, which is made of mostly plastic materials, and then you have ropes, which is more of your filament. So that's 3 to 14 months. If you have a rubber shoe, like a rubber boot, the sole of that shoe can take 50 to 80 years to biodegrade. Whereas if you have a leather shoe, it can take anywhere from 25 to 40 years, depending on the materials that it was made with. So kind of looking at plastic made or items that were made by using non-organic materials versus the organic materials. The next one is styrofoam. So styrofoam so I have a piece of styrofoam here, actually cannot biodegrade. We can see styrofoam like get crunched up, or if it gets heat to it, it can kind of fizzle out, or not fizzle out, but shrink up. But it does not actually biodegrade true styrofoam. Milk cartons, your plastic milk cartons can take 5 years to biodegrade, but wax cartons like this can take around 3 months to biodegrade. The next one is painted board. Painted board can take 13 years to biodegrade, but without that painted layer for plywood, it's 1 to 3 years. Painted board 13 years, plywood 1 to 3 years. Then we also have cardboard. So your regular cardboard takes around 2 months to biodegrade. If you have train tickets, it takes 2 to 4. Or sorry, I'm so sorry. For train tickets, it takes 2 weeks. For paper towels, it's 2 to 4 weeks. Newspaper, 6 weeks. So these are all of our organic materials. Those are paper-made items. Then we have nylon fabric, which is 30 to 40 years to biodegrade, versus wool cloth, which is 1 to 5 years to biodegrade. Cotton gloves take around 3 months. Tin cans, 50 years. Tin foil cannot be biodegradable as well. Aluminum cans can take anywhere from 200 to 250 years. Canvas products, so like your canvas, either painting canvas or like canvas material like bags, those can take 1 year to biodegrade. Batteries, 100 years. Glass bottles, 1 million years. That's being legit. It's 1 million years for a glass bottle. An apple core can take 2 months. Orange or banana peels, 2 to 5 weeks. And diapers, 450 years. So it makes you think, it makes you just stop and think about the items that we're using. How long will it take for that to get rid of that item that's sitting in a landfill so much? We're producing so much waste, 1,642 per year per family. That is a lot of plastic waste that are not just plastic, but that's a lot of waste that we as humans are using. And so recycling is the ability for us to be able to take some of those materials and use them in other ways, reuse them, so that we are reducing the amount that is going into our landfill. Now let's talk about the ocean sides of this. So for our oceans, we have these beautiful gyres. And an ocean gyre is basically a current. So we have ocean currents all over the ocean. Inside of our Gulf of Mexico, we have a loop current, which is a counterclockwise current. And the Pacific, which is the largest garbage patch in the world, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, there's a gyre as well. And that trash, a lot of this trash will float up into the water column, and it'll be mixed and go straight towards that center of the gyre. Now, there's so much plastic in the ocean. Every single gyre in the whole oceans has a garbage patch. There's some sort of pile of trash, but the Great Pacific Trash Patch has the most. And the current size is 3 times the size of Texas. So we're a big state here in Texas, and this amount of trash makes up 3 states of Texas, of the area. So it's pretty crazy. So the kind of point of this video is to kind of talk us through how we recycle some things, and then also kind of have conversations about how we can reduce the amount of trash that we're actually putting into the environment. So let's talk about recycling. How do we reuse those products? How do we send them to a place that they can be reused for different materials? So for recycled materials, they will have the typical recycle emblem on them. You can see with our Coney cups here, they have a recycling emblem. With this cup bin, we actually have a recycling emblem with a number 2 on it. So for these, it tells us what codes they have. Now for number 1, it's soda bottles, water bottles, and food packaging. Number 2 is detergent bottles, bleach bottles, milk containers, motor oil containers. Now before you recycle any of these items, you need to make sure that they're washed out. So if you have like a water bottle or it's filled with Coke or juice, you need to make sure that you get all the sugar out, even flavored waters and things like that. You want to make sure to get all the flavor, the smells out, so different animals don't try to raid them and try to find food there. And it also helps them to clean and reduce mold. So you want to do that. I will rinse it good and like let the water drip out. And then you need to put the cap back on. Now, back in the day, whenever they were first starting to recycle, these caps they couldn't recycle, and so they'd ask you to take them off. But now, what is happening is a lot of these lids are falling in the cracks of the recycling machines, and it's not very helpful. So they request that you leave the caps on. So once you get it cleaned out and dried out, leave the caps on. So kind of your basic things like your cardboard, your recycled materials, you want to make sure that they're cleaned out. And then for boxes, you want to make sure that they're broken down. So you do want to break down those boxes, even for, cereal boxes, or I like to call them printed boxes. You want to make sure to break them down, even as small as the cereal boxes, because it will help. And it also is a little bit easier to organize as well. So for those different items, they can be put in your bin at home, and then if you're taking them to a recycling center, it's a little bit easier if you separate them in different categories. So when you are taking them to the recycling center, you can just boop, 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 take them wherever you want. So for recycled materials that aren't labeled, so this cap right here and this straw, and I actually learned this while researching and making this video. I did not know that straws cannot be recycled, and it's because of their size. They're a little bit too small to fit through the machines. So they do need to go into the regular trash bin, as well as lids that do not have a recycle symbol on them. A lot of the coffee lids do have some sort of recycle symbol, but this one, I don't even remember where this came from, but this one is not. So pay attention to that whenever, because I get into the motion of things and say, oh, I'm going to recycle this, and then I'm like, oh wait, that I can't find a number on that. So it can be a little bit more complicated whenever you're looking into them. But keep in mind that the point of them to go into the recycling center is to be kind of squished and reused, melted down, like so some of those small materials can't be recycled. They need to just go ahead and go into the regular bin so you don't halt the production of those recycled materials. Because we are producing so much trash, and a lot of this trash can be recycled materials, let's talk more about those biodegradable rates. So we can talk about, plastic versus compostable. So if you're having a holiday and you have the choice of buying a styrofoam plate, a paper plate with a wax coating, or just paper plates, those kind of like flimsy paper plates, you're not going to probably choose those flimsy paper plates. You might go styrofoam, you might go the coated plastic. One thing that I do that I kind of got an idea from my friend, for her wedding, she actually used compostable plates. And so I buy these now for whenever I have all my family over, to try to reduce, there's just so many of us, it's really hard for us to not use some sort of like disposable plate. You can use real plates instead and use the dishwasher, or have a family team dishwashing party, and you can do that as well. But kind of thinking about those things that we're using, it's going to take a little bit less time for a disposable plate to be able to biodegrade versus of course, a styrofoam one that's not going to be able to biodegrade ever. So those are some kind of things. Bringing your lunch instead of trying to put it in plastic packaging, to use reusable Tupperware. Instead of buying water bottles, use a reusable water bottle. Trying to think of different ways to use it. And like I said, there's some things that you think are recyclable, but they're not. So like those solo cups that everybody uses at family gatherings, those ones actually cannot be recycled in your main recycling and your curbside recycling. So it's good to think about those. And it's also really good to look in your town. So at the Target, which is right next to the recycling here on the island, they have a place where you can do recycling bags, you can recycle batteries, and they have all kinds of stuff that you can recycle there. So some of these things that are not in your regular bins, if you save them to the side and next time you're going to Target, Walmart takes them as well, and I'm sure Kroger does as well. But sometimes you can't avoid using plastic. I go to a lot of conferences, and I guess because we're all marine biologists, like environmental educators, everyone gives out those reusable bags, right? And I have a ton of those, and I just load them up in my car and just keep them there. So if I'm going to the store, I put them in the grocery basket, and then I'm able to use those at checkout. So just having them available and on hand is also really good. But I think it's really good for us to have a conversation about maybe trying to reduce the amount of plastic that we're using, thinking of some ways, one or two simple ways that we can use in our family, just to reduce that from maybe 5 pounds per person to maybe like 4 pounds or 3 pounds or 2 pounds, having a goal. Because it's really hard to avoid plastic products. Our whole world is plastic. If you want to eat a Lunchable, it's in plastic container. If you want to have a soda, a lot of times it's in those, it's in the bottles if you want to bring them home. All those things that are really fun for us to have, and things that we want to have as a family. It is really difficult to avoid buying plastics. But if we make conscious decisions to say, hey, instead of buying packaging peanuts for these products that I need to send, or these gifts that I need to send for Christmas all over, maybe I'll try to use newspaper instead, because I know that newspaper is going to be a little bit better. You can do something really cool and retro. I got a ton of newspaper, and I don't really, I just keep saving it. I don't really know what we're going to do with it, other than I'm going to bring it here and we can use it for fish printing for sea camp. But I mean, even if you wanted to use that as like the paper that you put in gifts, that's also a really good idea. So thinking about those ways that you can say, hey, these things can not only save my family money, but they can help the environment to reduce the amount of plastic that we're putting in. So that's my Recycling 101 video. I know it's kind of hard. To kind of navigate recycling, but just remember that you want to try to put the caps back on, rinse them out and put the caps back on, and look at your standards or your regulations within your city. Find those recycling centers that will take those miscellaneous items that you can have, and then you can help to reduce the amount of plastic waste that's going into our oceans. Because even whenever you do balloon release up into the air, trade winds bring everything back to the ocean. And those balloons, like those things that we're using that are single use, we call those single use plastics, can really halt the production of cleaning up that ocean and cleaning up the environment around and filling up those landfills to where they cannot contain the capacity that we're asking it to do. So that's my Recycling 101 video. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we look forward to recycling with you.